Welcome to the What's New SOLIDWORKS 2018 rollout. I'm Brian. I'm an applications engineer with GoEngineer. I'll be joined by 3 other application engineers throughout this presentation to present to you what's new with SOLIDWORKS in 2018. First, I'd like to take a minute to talk about our Go University courses. These are online, self-paced courses that we've created for our customers. To get to those, the link's available on the screen right now. Next, I'd like to talk about another training opportunity we have. So we've always had in-person training classes and custom training classes where we come on site to your facility. We now offer online, live instructor-led training courses. These are great for anybody who isn't able to make it to a training location or works remotely from their office. Next, let's talk about our newest partner, Desktop Metal. Desktop Metal is office-friendly metal 3D printing. This is a new technology that allows us to have safe, office-friendly 3D metal printing. We have available to us a wide variety of materials, and there's many more that are being developed currently. Electrical Jumpstart is a program that we've created to help companies get up to speed with SOLIDWORKS Electrical as quickly as possible. We can come in and we can help set up your databases, your libraries, and other features that you need so you can hit the ground running with electrical. Geomagic for SOLIDWORKS is a plugin that allows us to quickly bring in scan data and create 3D models from that. Once we have these models inside of SOLIDWORKS, we can manipulate the dimensions, change geometry, and use this to compare from scan data to actual CAD geometry. One of the use cases for this is with inspection. We can take the CAD model, or our ideal design, and compare that to a scan of the real-world manufactured part. This allows us to see where we may have errors in our manufacturing process that we need to compensate for. Also with this technology, we can use this for reverse engineering. We can scan real-world parts that we don't have drawings for, create CAD models from that, and then recreate that part. Finally, I'd like to talk about Quality Expert, one of the new partners to GoEngineer. Quality Expert picks up where SOLIDWORKS Inspection leaves off. As we all know, SOLIDWORKS Inspection creates great 2D documentation for an inspection process. Quality Expert picks up from there and continues and fills in the rest of the picture. With Quality Expert, we can generate reports, check tolerances on tooling, make sure manufacturing processes are staying in line with what we need, and we can generate reports so we can see all of this data in a very easy-to-use format. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Adam Hughes, one of our applications engineers in California, and he'll talk to us about a new tool inside of SOLIDWORKS called SOLIDWORKS CAM.
So this next enhancement in 2018 I'm super excited about. So excited actually that I went and bought my own personal Tormach CNC machine for my garage. And that's now the addition of CAM 2.5 axis included in every seat of SOLIDWORKS. Now there's 2 options for CAM. There's CAM Standard and CAM Professional. And the great news about both these products is that they're powered by CAMWorks. And CAMWorks has been a gold partner with SOLIDWORKS since 1997. And so we're sure it works. So that's awesome news. So has anybody here actually opened up a file in SOLIDWORKS that wasn't a native file? And you get that little box that pops up that says feature recognition, and you can choose yes or no? That's actually a CAMWorks feature. And it's really helpful when generating toolpaths and operation plans. Simply run operation or run your FeatureWorks operation, and that recognizes all the machinable features in your model and automatically generates the operation plan, the toolpaths, and even selects the right tools for you with your technology database. Adding 2.5 axis features is also really easy. Specifying your keep out zones, or maybe even isolating particular islands on your machinable feature is extremely easy in SOLIDWORKS CAM, and the great news about that is that it's an additional tab in your feature tree. So you could think if you're in the design process and you're not quite sure about the accurate dimensions, you don't have to worry about it. You can make changes in your SOLIDWORKS feature tree, and those changes will be automatically updated in your CAM feature tree, and thus your toolpaths will be regenerated. Now the key takeaway here is that when we make those changes, unlike in other CAM softwares, we don't have to re-import that model. And all our design, all the work that we put into the design and the CAM operations is automatically updated. We don't have to redo all that information. In CAM Professional, we have the additional options to also program turn, as well as up to 5-axis CNC mill. With that, we also get volume mill and tolerance-based machining. Now, tolerance-based machining is really cool because it ties in with MBD. If we have a surface tolerance in MBD of, say, 50 thousandths, then we might just run an end mill and leave some material behind and call it good. But if we now change that tolerance to, say, 5 thousandths, we might have to start with our end mill and then come back with our finishing pass on our surface tool. So that functionality is automatically read in when we import the GD&T information from MBD into CAM.
Hey, so in 2018, we have some great new enhancements that enable designers to tackle the next generation of design process. Let's start off by looking at some of the enhancements with user experience and login and licensing. Starting off with just firing up SOLIDWORKS. Now in 2018, as soon as you fire up SOLIDWORKS, what you have access to is a login button. Now with the login button, you actually have access to your My SOLIDWORKS portal and your customer portal. Now the biggest benefit of this login button is that you're able to synchronize your setting based on your login, so your settings aren't device dependent anymore. So if you're moving to a different piece of hardware, all you need to do is to log into your account and your software settings and your SOLIDWORKS settings are automatically synchronized. Moving on, CAD administrators can now rejoice. Now license management has become very easy. They have an online administrative portal where they can track license usage and also all the assets that belong to your company. So if you'd like to see who has ownership of what kind of license, say SOLIDWORKS PCB or an analysis license, you can now associate them with specific users and give them total ownership of that license. Another great new benefit with the user experience is SOLIDWORKS online licensing. Now your license is not tied down to a piece of hardware anymore. You have the ability to associate your license with your login. So anytime you're switching computers or you'd like to use your SOLIDWORKS license back at home, all you need to do is log in within your SOLIDWORKS window, and that will give you access to the license that you're associated to.
All right, so next up, we're going to talk about what's new to SOLIDWORKS MBD, or model-based definition. So some great new enhancements. The first thing is that we can now add a datum to a pattern tolerance. And what's also nice about this too is that when we make the clicks and add the datum, it automatically attaches the datum to the annotation, thus streamlining our PMI delivery. Another bonus is that we can now display the PMI information from the part at the assembly level, so we can make those judgment calls or make any necessary changes, and have an intelligent conversation about the whole project. Also, while we're talking about PMI information at the assembly level, we've also added the functionality of passing the tolerance information from one component to another. With just one easy click, we can use the pair tolerance feature and say process the surface finish or the pattern tolerance from one component to its corresponding mating component at the assembly level. So another bonus is also the capability to publish our MBD tools, one of them being publishing to eDrawings. So when we choose to create an eDrawings file from our MBD information, it's now really easy to also attach the Step 242 files so that our company or other people downstream can easily navigate and look at those files. Another enhancement in 2018 is the capability to add a general tolerance to our title block. Now we could always add title blocks, but then throwing in a general surface tolerance or general profile tolerance just to cover the bases on our manufacturing for this component is a really handy tool. When publishing to a 3D PDF, you'll notice that we also have new templates. And one of the cool new enhancements to this is they have a little slideshow button on the lower right-hand corner. Now when you click and activate that, it just processes each one of the views from left to right, so that it makes it really easy if you're presenting or if you're discussing the technical information for your product development or manufacturing information.
Let's take a look at some of the SOLIDWORKS 2018 user enhancements that are going to help you save quite a bit of time. So let's take a look at the new home screen in SOLIDWORKS 2018. You can get to all your parts, assemblies, drawings, recent documents, recent folders, and some of your other system resources. We also have your tutorials and your My SOLIDWORKS training just right there, and any alerts for service packs, hot fixes, or anything else make sure you're up to date. So let's go ahead and open up from our recent documents one of these assemblies. It's a little cabinet assembly, 416 piece cabinet assembly. And you'll notice that there's a new screen. If some of you guys were like me, you'd look at the bottom left-hand corner of the dialog waiting for this thing to open. Now we've got a dialog box that's actually going to tell you when it's opening, how much time it's taking, and really what it's doing. So you make sure that your machine is not locked up. All right, now that we've got the part open, let's take a look at the new enhancements in the performance evaluation. We've always had the existing stuff for number of parts, components, mates, upper level assemblies, but now we have open file details, so we can really find out what files are actually causing the slow open times. Also, once the file is open, we can find out what problems we have with triangles, image quality, or anything like that. To make that even a little bit better, we can select on the Assembly Visualization button, and that's going to pull up all of these same things in a tool so we can actually quantify them. We can sort by the order of total graphics triangles, open time, or rebuild time. We can move the little slider so you can actually see what components are causing these issues. And so I have a USB outlet that's a little bit higher resolution than what I expect. So I'm going to just change the configuration over to low detail. Go ahead and load that guy in. Looks just fine for our assembly. And we're good to go. Now we've saved a lot of performance issues that we might have had previously. So let's take a look at some other little cool things. When we're at top level assembly, we always had a little bit of an issue trying to make all the subcomponents transparent. So what we can do now is do that at the top level. Just right click, transparency. We've always used folders for quite some time to group components where they're not actually in a sub-assembly. But we had problems whether or not we could tell whether the components were suppressed or unsuppressed. The folder just pretty much stayed the same. Now what's happening is we changed the color of the folder so you can actually tell what's in it, whether the parts are visible, not visible, suppressed, or unsuppressed. Let's go ahead and right click, go to customize, and let's take a look at mouse gestures. They've had a complete overhaul on the user interface on this. We can go from 2 gestures all the way up to 12 gestures. I like 8. And we can also search for any commands. So let's look at the hide one, and we'll just drag and drop it right on the mouse gesture that we want. You can even control, drag and drop, and customize these things from one gesture to the other. You can also print this guy out, put it by your computer until you memorize exactly what the mouse gestures are. So let's take a look at one of the issues we had was when you wanted to select some components, you always had to pick out in the middle of nowhere to try and select them. That doesn't work very well. So there's a new option, it says select over geometry, allows you to pick. You can still hold down control to multi-select. And once you select all those, then of course I can use my mouse gestures again to go ahead and hide those components. So SOLIDWORKS 2018 is really giving you some really good tools for the user interface to help you get your job done.
In 2018, there's been some enhancements to SOLIDWORKS Inspection. Now remember that there's two items when you purchase inspection. You have standard and the add-in. We're just going to cover the add-in right now. And some great enhancements is a whole revamp of the templates. Well, what's great about these is that the templates automatically capture some of that low-hanging fruit, like part revision and part name, number, and so on. So in the past in inspection, we would read in the inspection information from either a PDF or the SOLIDWORKS drawing. Now the added functionality in 2018 also includes the MBD or DIM expert information. So you can imagine creating an inspection report and then cutting your toolpaths all with that source MBD file or that DIM expert information. Of course, publishing this information is done with one easy click. Simply select Export to Excel, and your first article information is automatically generated.
So the next line of enhancements in 2018 is, well, the touch mode. In 2018, the touch mode enables users to seamlessly use SOLIDWORKS in their touch-enabled devices in order to, well, manipulate their designs and create new ones. Now, in order to activate the touch mode, all you need to do is go into the View menu and grab the touch mode button. Now, as soon as you do that, you can disconnect any auxiliary device that's connected to your touch-enabled device, and, well, the user interface updates to have a couple of commands that helps you seamlessly operate well your designs. Well, the first set of commands you'll notice is a quick access toolbar. Now, from the quick access toolbar, you have a set of menus that you can use to make modifications, reorient your design, and so on and so forth. Now, let's say we wanted to check the clearance on the little shelf and the dishwasher. So here, what we're trying to do is we're actually trying to check the clearance using the clearance detection tool between the drawer and the dishwasher. Now, moving on. Now, let's say you'd like to use your mouse gestures. Now, with touch-enabled devices, all you need to do is do a little swipe, and that gives you access to the menus in your mouse gestures. Here, what we're going to do is we're going to use the zoom command from your mouse gestures in order to zoom into a design that we're about to modify, which is this little tab. Now, in order to modify the tab, all you need to do is, well, tap on it. And as soon as you tap the tab, your frequently used commands show up. And what's really interesting about this is that in your touch mode, these frequently used commands have larger icons, so you don't miss the button that you'd like to hit. Now, here, what we're about to do is we're about to change the configuration of the tab to, well, a larger tab. Now, the last line of enhancements with the touch mode is the touch sketching. Now, napkin sketching has been the foundation of engineering design since time immemorial. So now we've brought in this napkin sketching capability with your touch mode and your touch-enabled devices in SOLIDWORKS 2018. Now, what this enables users to do is, as soon as you activate your touch mode and you get into a sketch, your command manager updates to have the Sketch Ink tab. Now, once you get into the Sketch Ink tab, what you can do is you can actually grab the color of your stylus and even the size. Now, once you have both of those selected, all you need to do is grab your stylus and start making pen strokes on the screen. Now, once you start making these pen strokes, the software has the intelligence to identify the closest parametric shape to any stroke you make. So, you do a little squiggly line, and that actually turns into a straight line. The big benefit behind this is that as you're doing these napkin sketches, you can actually auto-convert them to sketch entities. Now, the interesting part about that is that if you actually connect the endpoints of these sketch entities, they automatically add a relationship to them. So you don't have to manually add a relationship between sketch endpoints.
In 2018, SOLIDWORKS PCB is updated with some new enhancements and features that were requested specifically by users. This shows a commitment to improving the product and keeping it current and up to date. Due to this commitment from SOLIDWORKS, they're not limiting new advancements to just major releases. On this slide, we're highlighting just some of the new features and enhancements that SOLIDWORKS has included in PCB during the 2017 release. With SOLIDWORKS PCB 2018, we've included a footprint wizard based on IPC 7351 standards. All of these new enhancements to SOLIDWORKS PCB in 2018 show that SOLIDWORKS is committed to improving this product. SOLIDWORKS has also included a wizard for creating schematic symbols. We recognize that there's a library of standard symbols, but most engineers want to create custom symbols for their specific needs. With this new wizard, we can create those custom symbols quickly and easily. Many companies have databases that contain vital information to component selection, lead times, and costs. Now, in SOLIDWORKS PCB 2018, we can transfer mapped information from your company's database into component parameters. SOLIDWORKS PCB supports variants in the schematic and in the layout tool. Because of the synchronization to the CAD model, we could actually represent these variants with configurations inside of SOLIDWORKS. New in 2018 is the ability to create a single assembly with multiple configurations associated to these variants.
All right, so the next tool we're going to talk about is Treehouse. Now, if you don't know what this tool is or haven't used it yet, I would encourage you to take a look at it and see if it fits your current business workflow. But some of the enhancements here in 2018 include zooming to an area and then also printing that or print previewing that. And then the added functionality where we can take our tree structure of our assembly and convert it into a table.
So SOLIDWORKS has always been about design optimization. So in 2018, they brought in a brand new design optimization tool inside SOLIDWORKS simulation called Topology Study. Now, topology optimization relies on a complex set of bone growth algorithms in order to come up with an optimum shape for your designs to perform the function that it was intended to. The benefit of this topology optimization is that it actually gives you shapes that you're able to generate with both traditional manufacturing methods and also additive manufacturing methods. Now, let's take a look at what this topology study looks like and how we can kind of set what are the nuances of setting up a topology study. Now, in 2018, the simulation portfolio has been slightly modified, and some of the icons have been rearranged into separate groups, and the topology study belongs to a design insight group. All right, so setting up a topology study is really straightforward. It's much like setting up any static structural analysis. You need to specify what the component is made of, what the constraints are, what kind of loading conditions it's experiencing. The only two new features that you need to add are what is your optimization goal and what kind of manufacturing constraints would you like to impose on your component. Now, let's take a look at what these look like. Now, as far as your optimization goal goes, you're trying to always save mass. So you're actually able to set what the final mass of the object is, or rather how much mass you'd like to remove from the component in order to come up with the optimized shape. Now, besides that, you can also set displacement constraints to improve the stiffness of the object. So you have a whole host of goals to pick from, but the mass goal tends to be the most popular. Besides this, of course, you need to impose manufacturing constraints, or it's going to start removing, the software is going to start removing material from areas that is, well, not manufacturable. So in this case, if the component is a casted part, you're essentially picking the demold direction. So you pick the parting line, and hence the software will start removing material that facilitates one parting line. Now, once the component is optimized, this is what it looks like. It leaves material only in the areas that really resist the loading conditions. And you're actually able to use a slider in order to pick how much material you want to leave in the component and how much material you'd like to remove from the component. Now, in 2017, there was a cool new feature that was added that lets you actually superimpose your simulation results onto your assemblies. Now, in order to present this to your marketing team, now we can use this feature in order to superimpose the topologically optimized design onto the final assembly. As I mentioned, SolidWorks has always been about optimizing your products, and 2018 brings some really cool new structural analysis optimization features that let you pick just the right shape for just the right function for your designs.
One of the new enhancements in SOLIDWORKS 2018 is the addition of the tab slot feature. Now, this tool is pretty cool because in the past we might have to use some complex fixturing for welding or complex measurements, and now we can simply add a tab slot for easy indexing. Simply select the edge of the component and then specify how many tabs you would like, followed by the offset, or maybe a clearance condition, and maybe a fillet or a chamfer condition on the tab. Hit the green check, and you automatically have your indexing locations so that one component snaps into another component. Additionally, adding multiple tab slot features to multiple edges of a single component is easy. Similar to the weldment tool where we can just add a new group, we select a new edge, followed by the additional information for each one of our tabs. And again, green check, and all of our information is completed.
So let's take a look at some of the new enhancements with SOLIDWORKS 2018 and assemblies. Everybody uses assemblies, so let's get started. So let's take a look at this little assembly, some 40,000 plus components, and let's kind of dig down into this little cabinet assembly. On the cabinet, I've got a little mug holder. We're going to open up the subassembly. And we've always had the ability to do a local pattern, but now we have a little option to do rotate instances. So that way we can actually do almost like a helical pattern. So it's pretty cool. Everything looks good. We can set it to 120 degrees and then hit OK. Let's go ahead and show the components with the mugs on it. And then let's switch over to one of the problems that we always had was if you've ever used the right click and said select other, it's kind of a problematic thing going down, digging down to the surfaces that you can't really select on. Now, if you're in the make command, you just hit the Alt tab and it automatically selects on the face that you need to. Another problem we have is if you purchase some of these components, you don't have the option to actually make them exact because you bought two purchased components. So I've got a cylindrical face that I need concentric with another cylindrical face. Well, now we can do what's called misaligned mates. When I do a misaligned mate, I can add the option to align it with one cylindrical mate or the other, or I can actually have it be symmetric. When it's symmetric, you can kind of see it looks really good between the two mates. When we do this, it tells us what the deviation between the two concentric mates actually are. Not only that, but we can also find this pretty quick and easy when we go into the mates dialog or the mates folder on your assembly tree, and we can see the two concentric mates. If you don't like that, we can turn it off. So in your system options under assemblies, we can check that whether we want it or not. So next, let's take a look at some explode views. Those are quick and easy in 2017, and we've enhanced the technology in 2018 for the route lines. So all you have to do is right-click on the exploded view, select on Smart Explode Lines, and they're practically done for you. Looks pretty good. We have some options that we can do with that. So by default, it uses the bounding box of the individual components to put one route line to the other route line. But we can change that. When we select on the object, we can just say selected point and drag it to the point that we want. And then we can say update to all instances. It's quick and easy. Anytime we make a change, those route lines automatically update, saving you time and money.
In SOLIDWORKS 2018, we introduced some enhancements to drawings. In fact, a lot of that information we create in MBD, our annotations or dim expert information, can be easily dragged and dropped into a drawing, and with an easy checkbox, we can show all that information so that we don't have to redo that manually at the drawing mode. Another enhancement that's kind of cool is if we have a table where we see that there's some lowercase characters in the table, we have now an easy button, a fix-it button, where we can just say, hey, make everything in the table all uppercase. So that should save you some time. The next improvement is focused in on our broken out section view. Kind of like a detail view where we can just create a closed sketch. We can now select that closed sketch for a broken out section, which then will be prompted for a new dialog box that allows for additional information. And when accepting that, we now have a custom broken out section view, which we couldn't have done in the past. So another handy tool in drawings that was recently improved was for like manufacturability reasons. So typically, if we add a tolerance on the end of a dimension, we also typically assign like a manufacturing value to that, right? So the more significant figures it has, the more it would cost to make. And sometimes we do this inadvertently, and we can easily fix this in our options now. Simply select your options, search for zeros, and select the corresponding option. You can see that the trailing zeros on a dimension would be removed, thus making the part more manufacturable and more affordable to make.
So who wants to be the Steven Spielberg of SOLIDWORKS? Exactly. Now, another new enhancement in SOLIDWORKS 2018 is your ability to manipulate mesh models. Some typical use cases for mesh modeling is, well, reverse engineering, using objects as a reference design, importing any scan geometry, or importing models from an artistic geometry creation software like ZBrush. Now, all of these require a mesh modeling component to your Parasol kernel in order to be able to manipulate your models and in order to be able to get useful information of this imported mesh geometry. Now, let's take a look at what SOLIDWORKS has that lets you do that. Starting off with file formats. Previously, we were only able to do STLs, but now we can do OBJs and PLYs, very popular formats amongst the artistic world and also the engineering world. Now, once you import the mesh models, you're actually able to add textures and colors to them, and you're able to use real-view graphics to actually take a look at them. Now, besides that, you can take section views of graphic objects without having to convert them to solid bodies. Now, moving on to the next enhancement, we are able to pull out surfaces off of mesh geometry. You may ask me, hey, that was always a feature with Scan to 3D. But now with mesh modeling, we are actually able to take a little paintbrush, grab a set of facets that belong to a face, pick the closest parametric shape that the face represents. It could be a cylinder, a sphere, a cone, or even a surface. And then you're able to extract that surface seamlessly. Now you can look at the workflow on the screen that essentially goes over extracting a planar surface and a cylindrical surface without too much without too much manipulation with just a click of a couple of buttons. Now, not only that, once you've extracted these surfaces, you can actually use a lot of all of the surfacing commands actually in order to merge and knit these surfaces together, trim them, extend them, and so on and so forth. So all surfacing commands actually work on the extracted surfaces. Now, besides that, mass properties is a key element in trying to analyze any imported geometry. Now, you're able to convert these graphic objects into actual solid mesh geometry that then you're able to use to evaluate the mass properties for. So if you're looking at moment of inertia or center of mass or just how much this thing weighs for a given density, you're able to get all that information from SOLIDWORKS 2018. Next, now let's say you want to make a modification to this little clamp that goes on a TV stand. You can start manipulating geometry like you would any SOLIDWORKS geometry. Right now, we're going to fire up a sketch, draw a couple of entities that then resemble the shape that we're going to pull out of the model, and then use a set of Boolean operations in order to perform subtraction to, well, cut a slot through the little clamp. Now, what's really interesting about this is that the sketch relations can be associated with the facets in your mesh models. So that gives you, that helps you maintain, relationships between, your sketch geometry without having them, floating. Now, as I mentioned, you can run Boolean operations between mesh models and another mesh model. You typically cannot do it between a solid body and a mesh model. So converting a solid body to a mesh model is pretty seamless as well. It's just a click of a button and performing a combine operation in order to pull the slot out of the little clamp. Now, once this clamp is prepared, what you can do is you can actually import it into the assembly that it belongs to and use any of the mating features in order to mate your mesh model to the final assembly, completing the TV stand.
There's a lot of improvements in SOLIDWORKS Electrical for the 2018 release. While we've only got enough time to get through some of the major improvements, I want you to know that SOLIDWORKS is committed to improving this tool, and we're seeing major improvements throughout the service pack cycle. In 2018, SOLIDWORKS Electrical has new enhancements for how wire numbers are used. This includes new grouping options, sorting, and the ability to repurpose unused wire numbers. New options for libraries in SOLIDWORKS Electrical 2018 include the most requested enhancement. This is the ability to rename and create new classifications. The new enhancements in SOLIDWORKS Electrical 2018 help to improve the product and enhance our designs.
In 2018, eDrawings user interface was updated. We now have larger icons that are easier to use with your mobile device. And we also got the progress loading bar that tells us, what percentage we are for loading this next document. Additionally, we highlighted some tools for MBD, and now we can easily attach the step AP242 files and then toggle between each one of them. Also in eDrawings, the markup indicator is now even easier to use. And we also are able to take the decals from SOLIDWORKS and save them into the eDrawings file so that we can view them natively in the eDrawings document.
So let's look at some of the new enhancements with SOLIDWORKS 2018, including the magnetic mates. So in 2017, we always had an issue where we only had one ground plane. 2018, we can have as many as we want. So I just right-click on the mezzanine, activate that ground plane, and when I drag and drop my part in, it's automatically on that mezzanine plane. We can use the tab key to go ahead and drag and drop or rotate it, put it where it belongs. And then we got a nice easy-to-use button for the ability to lock that magnet mate. We used to have to go into the browser tree, find that magnet mate, and then select on it. So that little button makes it easy to use. Next, let's go ahead and drag in one more component. And before we place him, we'll use the open and close bracket so we can cycle through the static component and the moving component so we can get the exact same magnet mate that we want.
So in 2017, SOLIDWORKS brought in a great enhancement that allows you to leverage your legacy CAD data without actually having to translate files to use inside SolidWorks Assembly. So whether it was an inventor file or a ProE file, you could just bring it in and use them as components in a SolidWorks assembly. Now what they did in 2018 is they expanded the file formats to include dummy files as well, such as the STEP, IGS, and an ACIS. Now, besides this, you're not only restricted to using these formats, but you can also use the unconsumed sketches and references that was used in the software that was used to essentially create this format. Now in this little example, we're going to cut a hole through a panel with a reference geometry that belongs to a timer that was created in a different, in a different piece of software. You can see how seamless it is in SolidWorks 2018 to quickly transfer these unconsumed sketches and use existing references in order to make these modifications. The final set of enhancements for 3D Interconnect in SolidWorks 2018 is your ability to reuse custom properties that traveled in from different software. What this means is that downstream of your design process, if you're generating a bill of materials or a drawing with any of these legacy CAD data, you don't have to repopulate these fields since the custom properties are already in the software.
Next up is SolidWorks Composer, one of my favorite tools. If you need to create work instructions, animations, assembly instructions, or interactive HTML web content, this is the tool for you. One enhancement in 2018 is we can take the library animation feature and mirror it. This way we don't have to create two features, saving us time. Also, another enhancement is we can now include the BOM from SolidWorks and bring it into Composer, again, saving us even more time when we're creating these technical documentations. Composer also leverages the information in our SolidWorks configurations and display states, and essentially what you see is what you get. Also, we've added functionality to the Rights Manager, now including the Digger tool.
In 2018, SOLIDWORKS PDM has a bunch of enhancements to help improve the performance of the tool. One of these improvements is the new branch and merge feature. What this allows you to do is take your design process and at some point split this or branch the design into multiple ideas. These ideas can then be tested out and vetted. Once a design is chosen, it can be merged back into the design history without any disruption to the revisions. This saves you a clumsy process of saving and overriding that we used to have to do before. The other enhancement I'd like to talk about is the fact that now in 2018, SOLIDWORKS PDM will communicate with the revision table in your drawings. As you revision the PDM system or make design changes, it will reflect in the drawings as well.
So besides creating virtual design, SolidWorks has a whole host of tools that lets you virtually test your products for the function that they were intended for. Now I'm going to talk to you about the enhancements of some of these products in the next couple of minutes. Starting off with SolidWorks Simulation, which is our structural analysis tool. Now we have many enhancements in SolidWorks Simulation, but I'd like to highlight about 4 of them today. The first enhancement being stress singularity detection. So stress singularity is almost the bane to any analyst's existence. You would essentially take a look at stress plots and you wouldn't know if they're real stresses or fake stresses. But in 2018, we have a new feature that lets you isolate these stress singularities and lets you decide if you need to make any design modifications to eradicate these singularities. For instance, in this little antenna assembly, we actually ran an analysis on a clamp, and we noticed 2 spots with stress singularities. But we wanted to know how they affected the rest of the model, how they affected the rest of the integrity of the rest of the component. So grabbing a stress hotspot diagnostic that was introduced 2 years ago and using that data to isolate stress singularities, we were actually able to see the depth of the zones that were affected, and we were able to make modifications to this design so that the stress is allowed to spread over a larger area, giving you a stronger design. Now besides that, it's not enough to run analyses just on a component level. You'd essentially like to run the analysis on this on the entire assembly. Here what we're doing is we're testing the antenna for integrity when it experiences drag forces when it's mounted on, well, a moving vehicle. Now Setting up this analysis can be a little tedious because you need to essentially assign connections, and you need to assign the different conditions in order to set up the analysis for each individual component. New for 2018 is that if you have the analysis set up in any one of the child components, you're actually able to bring them into the full assembly using the import simulation features button. Here you're able to import connections, fixtures, and boundary and loading conditions by the click of a button. You just need to grab the component you need and grab the icon corresponding to the feature you want to bring in. Next, pin connectors. Now, it's very popular in the analysis world to remove any sort of bolts and pins and replace them with simulation entities. Previously, you were restricted to using only 2 surfaces for creating a pin, but now in 2018, if a pin runs through multiple surfaces, you can actually grab all of those surfaces and use them for the pin definition. Now, the final enhancement, and one of my most favorites, is that if you're running an analysis over the weekend, and if you'd like to be notified for when the analysis is complete, you can actually set up email notifications that then gets the solver to notify you as soon as the analysis is complete, so you can go back and check on it at the right time.
In the SOLIDWORKS 2018 standalone inspection tool, we now have the added functionality of reading in AP242 files from other CAD programs. So you can imagine those AP242 files have all the PMI information in, all the tolerancing and GD&T, and we need to use those dimensions to create our first article inspection report. Now we can use the Smart Extract tool to capture each one of those dimensions like we would our optical character recognition and automatically generate that Excel document. Of course, generating the first article inspection is just as easy whether you're in the standalone or the add-in version of inspection. Simply click export, and that first article inspection is automatically generated in Excel.
So besides those great enhancements we saw with SOLIDWORKS simulation, we have some new enhancements even in our CFD package called flow simulation. Now, previously we used to be able to do 2-dimensional symmetry, quarter symmetry, and half symmetry, but now with 2018 you're actually able to do sector periodicity. What this means is that you're able to create axisymmetric models and just take slices of the pie in order to run the analysis. So you don't have to run an axisymmetric model in its entirety. All you need is a really small bit. Now, besides that, one of the biggest enhancements we have in 2018 is our ability to do free surface flow. So if you're actually trying to solve problems such as tank sloshing, and you'd like to actually look at how immiscible fluids behave, you're able to simulate that with the new feature in 18. Now, it doesn't end there. If you'd like to predict the acoustics or the acoustic performance of this tank sloshing scenario, we now have the fast Fourier transform algorithm that then lets you predict the noise generated from the water sloshing around a tank. Now, the next set of enhancements is in our plastics analysis tool. It is an injection molding validation tool that gives you the structural and aesthetic quality of your component as soon as it pops out of an injection molding press. Now, one of the first enhancements in this tool is a redesigned meshing UI. So typically, different components in the analysis, such as your runners and your gates, your mold, and even the cavity, have different mesh types. Right now, you can group these mesh types into subdomains, and you can assign specific mesh type to specific subdomains. That makes the entire process of meshing and remeshing very seamless. Besides that, we've made clamp force improvements in the sense you can actually specify the direction of ejection, so the clamp force is calculated only in that one direction. So typically we used to calculate clamp force in 3 directions, but because of this improvement, our clamp forces are a lot more accurate. Next line of enhancements involve clipping plane improvements. Typically, you were restricted to only 3 default clipping planes, but now you can use reference geometry from SOLIDWORKS in order to create different clipping planes that then allow you to look at results within your geometry without having to deal with the UI. Now, finally, and this is one of the best improvements we've had in the plastics analysis tool, is our ability to predict short shots that include temperature profiles. So up to 2017, short shots in the cavity were only predicted due to a lack of enough injection pressure. But right now, we can actually study the temperature profile of the component during the injection molding process and predict if that temperature profile would cause premature gate freeze or premature plastic freeze, that essentially lead to short shotting of the plastic inside the injection mold.
So if you thought Visualize was cool in 2017, guess what? It gets better. In 2018, the user interface for Visualize was improved with new icons and just easier to navigate. An added bonus here too is that upon importing a SOLIDWORKS file, we now include all the SOLIDWORKS lights plus the SOLIDWORKS appearances and textures. Now the bonus here is if we already have the proper appearances and textures applied in SOLIDWORKS, then we get to reuse all that information in Visualize, thus saving us time. Additionally, we have a new hotkey in Visualize, the F key. Just like in SOLIDWORKS, we strike the F key, we do a zoom to fit. In our task pane, we also have the view palette, which allows us to select from our front, top, right, and various isometric views, which is super handy for getting the right camera orientation. Additionally, we have new lights in Visualize, the area light. We can select a plane, a sphere, or a tube so that we can accurately reflect the lighting in our environment. Visualize 2018 boasts some new enhancements with our appearances and textures. We can now accurately scan different colors and textures and add it to our database so that we can use these ultra-realistic appearances in our workflows and in our models. In addition to rendering panoramic and VR views in Visualize 2018, we also now have the capability to output a stereoscopic render, which allows us to utilize like Google Cardboard or an Oculus Rift headset so that we can look around as if we're immersed inside of our render. Now what's even cooler about these stereoscopic renders is that we can play them on, say, like YouTube, watch a sun study as time elapses, and then also pan and move around so we get this ultra-realistic view and we get immersed in our render as if we're actually there. With these enhancements to SOLIDWORKS Visualize 2018, we can use our CAD models to generate professional and ultra-realistic images for use with our marketing department or our website.
In 2018, SOLIDWORKS is introducing a brand new tool called SOLIDWORKS Manage. Built on the powerful data management platform of PDM Professional, SOLIDWORKS Manage gives new capabilities for project management, timeline management, resource allocation, as well as item management. With all of this new capability, SOLIDWORKS Manage provides an easy-to-use, intuitive interface for managers to create reporting and planning processes. If you'd like to learn more about SOLIDWORKS Manage, please contact us at GoEngineer.